Hey, love, before we go any further, just know this. I'm not here to be someone you follow, and I'm not here to teach you how to live your life. I'm walking my path, and I'm speaking it out loud as I go. And your path is going to look different, as it should. Sometimes, when something real is spoken, it cuts through the noise just enough for you to hear yourself again. So if something in this hits or lands or stirs something in you, I invite you to pause there. Not because I said it, but because you felt it. You don't need to rush to change anything. You don't need to turn this into a plan. Just don't ignore yourself, because your life isn't built by following someone else's voice. It's built by trusting your own. So take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and stay rooted in yourself while you listen. This is just a conversation. Hey friends, so today I decided that it was time to explore the foundations of unapologetic living together. I've had a lot of insight and things that have just deeply aligned this work over the past couple weeks. And then I realized that I've never really talked about what the foundations are, which is funny because, they simplified today. So that's probably why, I believe everything happens for a reason, right? So therefore it is. But before we begin and dive down into it, if you'd like to work with me inside the haven of unapologetic living or through a pattern seeing session, the links are in the description and in my bio. Also, before we go any further, I would like to say something extremely important. This work is meant to be lived, shared, practiced, and experienced in real life. This is a model that is clear and honest so that you can begin using it in your own life immediately. Because your life already belongs to you. It always has. And unapologetic living is the practice of consciously choosing yourself, your truth, and your reality with intention. So, for most of my life, I believed that love meant being needed. Strength meant carrying everything for everybody, and that belonging meant becoming who other people needed me to be. And in my reality, I officially became a mother at 18, but I really had been playing at being a mother my entire life. It's something I enjoyed. And over time, I was becoming incredibly skilled at just holding everything together for everyone else. And people would look at me and they would see a life full of love. They saw family. I'm owning my responsibilities and I had connection. But my reality inside was I felt invisible, even though I was surrounded by loved ones. I don't think anyone truly knew who I was. They knew who I was for them. And over time, I finally started realizing how often I was overriding my own body, silencing my truth and shaping myself and everything about me around everyone else's comfort and their emotions, their expectations, and their needs. I had spent most of my life focused on being who I thought I needed to be. And one day I realized that I didn't even know who I was underneath it. And one of those moments we lovingly call the almost divorce. I've talked about it on the channel before, but it's when I almost walked away from my husband. And at the time, I thought that my marriage was ending, but what I eventually realized was that it was really my old identity was finally ending. The version of me who believed love required self-abandonment could no longer survive inside the life that I was living. The shaky foundation had to be blown up so that we could build a more solid one from a place that allowed us both to live fully inside it. Because we had gotten together through identities of what we thought subconsciously. We didn't know we were following patterns. We had no idea. And I didn't know how to openly claim what I needed without asking somebody to sacrifice themselves too. And that's not what I wanted, which is why I tried to walk away. But that also meant I was taking away his choice to choose to stay too. And I'm grateful that our life experiences made us face that so we couldn't run. Well, I couldn't run. And that experience changed everything for me. Because then I ended up learning deeper understandings of identity and what nervous system safety was, conscious creation, the relationships, the patterns, and the ways that we unconsciously shape our realities through repeated choices and assumptions. And through all of that, everything kept leading me back to the same three foundations: safety, seeing, sovereignty. And that eventually became the entire model of unapologetic living. Safety is the first foundation because most people are trying to consciously change their lives while their bodies are still operating from survival and protection and adaptation. You can mentally understand things. If your body doesn't feel safe holding it, you won't. That's what self-sabotage is. Because when the body believes that authenticity threatens connection, belonging, love, safety, people naturally begin shaping themselves around the world around them. They end up becoming highly aware of everyone else, what everyone else needs, what everyone else wants. Meanwhile, they're slowly losing the connection to who they are because they're so worried about what about them. And after living that way long enough, many people begin believing that that version of themselves is simply who they are. Becomes their identity. Well, I just am the person who always shows up. I'm the person who always has it together. Everyone comes to me. But something powerful happens when safety begins to finally exist within you. Your body softens. Your awareness starts expanding. And your truth becomes easier to hear. Because inner safety is not about controlling the outside world or about making your life perfectly comfortable. It's about becoming someone who remains connected to themselves no matter what life is asking them to feel, face, experience, or choose. And when you begin feeling safe within yourself, you naturally stop seeking permission to exist authentically. And that is where awareness ends up beginning. Seeing is the second foundation because awareness changes everything. Most people are living from identities and beliefs, emotional patterns, assumptions they've made, and relational dynamics that they inherited long before they consciously chose them. Over time, those patterns became familiar, and familiarity ends up starting to feel true. Like, well, that's just how life is. This is just what we do. But then that's when life begins repeating the same experiences through different people, different environments, relationships, and circumstances. Because you have the same emotional dynamics, same limitations, same fears, same stories running on repeat. Because reality reflects the identities and assumptions that we repeatedly embody within ourselves. So, seeing is the moment that awareness enters the room. It's the moment that you begin recognizing the patterns that are shaping your reality, but you're seeing them with honesty and curiosity and compassion. You begin seeing the identities you have practiced, the stories you have normalized, and the unconscious choices hidden underneath the automatic reactions. And once you can truly see something, you gain the ability to consciously choose differently. That's why awareness restores power, because awareness restores choice, because choice is power. That naturally leads into the final foundation of sovereignty. Sovereignty is the practice of consciously choosing your life, your identity, your relationships, the boundaries you hold, your business, and your reality with intention. The understanding that your life begins changing through repeated embodied choice, again and again and again. Each time you choose in alignment with who you desire to be, you strengthen that identity within yourself. Over time, your nervous system becomes more familiar with authenticity and self-trust, honesty, abundance, rest, connection, visibility, love, peace, and intentional living. And eventually, what once felt unfamiliar to you begins feeling natural. And that is how reality changes without force, without being a performance, without having to pressure yourself into, you know, making yourself do the thing every single day. But through conscious identity and repeated intentional choice. That is unapologetic living. Safety, seeing, sovereignty. The path back to yourself. And what I realized is my life path has always worked for me because that was my one truth I always claimed. My life always works for me. I learn through every experience I have. Life is teaching me always. And everything I walked through, I would do again But from this level of where I'm at, I'm now understanding how I chose every single one of those levels. And yeah, had I learned what I know now way back in the day, I could have completely shifted a lot of things. But had I felt safe enough to hold it? Probably not. Because that's the deeper reality. Safety has to come first. And that's what's not taught right now. Like, I had to embody safety within myself on my own. Because everywhere around me, I didn't see that. The world didn't feel safe. And people certainly didn't talk about the world being safe. Everywhere I turned, it felt very unsafe. When I finally took matters into my own hands of trying to find another way to be, knowing that I could not continue feeling as unsafe as I did, I had to get a handle on my anxiety that I felt that nobody knew about, or very few people knew about. Because my reality was I was the responsible, capable one, and I handle anything that comes. And I did with ease, but at the expense of my body. And what I'm now noticing is that safety that I finally felt within. It's because I chose it. Because I heard something outside of me that felt good, like my body leaned into, and I chose to identify with it. I still remember the first time I heard it, actually. It was one of my first spiritual teachers, actually, had said that we choose our lives before coming here. You know, we choose the main characters, we choose the stories, we choose the hardships, all the main events we choose, even our deaths. And everything in between is free will. And we may not get to the very end of our story of everything that we chose, because that's the whole part of the process, is there's infinite possibilities of how many ways to get there. And so when we, end up dying and going back to source, that's what we discuss, is like, see how far we made it, and then we come back and we learn again. And I remember when I heard that, I didn't care if it was true. All I knew is that I was petrified of dying. I was petrified of leaving my kid. Because at the time, all kids, but when I had my firstborn, I gained this immense fear of leaving the earth. Because I was so afraid of what would happen if I wasn't here to raise him. And then obviously, as I ended up with my bonus kiddo and had 2 more kids, like, that intensity just, it rose so high. It's like, what? I have to behave this way so that way I don't leave these kids. But the reality is even if I died, they would have been okay. Life rearranges. I just didn't want to consider that reality, because my reality was they weren't going to be okay without me. And then I was like, that can't be okay. Because, like, eventually they have to leave the nest and be okay without me. So, like, what does that look like? Not to mention, I was afraid to live life because I was afraid to leave them. So I heard that and I was like, okay, we choose our deaths. Well, if that's the case, I'm never going to outrun it. I already chose it. And in my head, it made logical sense because it would explain all of these miracle stories of people surviving things that they should have never survived. Like that was their free will. They chose to do something, but yet survived it because that wasn't the way they chose to die. And it's like, interesting. And like, it didn't matter if it was true or not, it felt freer. And it did. It freed me enough to move to the next step and then the next step. You know, the next embodiment, the next choice. Until eventually I realized that safety had to be within. I could no longer fear the world. Fearing the world wasn't serving me. And if I chose all the things that happened to me, I'm not going to outrun them. So I need to just have faith and trust that whatever comes is meant to be. And if that's the case, then I need to have faith and trust in myself to choose. And it's like, interesting. Keep moving, keep doing the things, keep learning, keep growing, still identifying with, I'm healing, I'm doing all these things, taking all these steps so I can be a better me, so I can be better for myself and for my kids, for my family. And then the end of last year, I finally hit this moment where I'm like, I understand so much. I have all this information. I have done all these tools. I have done all these things. And I've come so far. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, even at that point, like, I wrote a fucking book. I become a published author. Like, I did all these things. But deep down, I'm like, I'm still not seeing certain stuff in my reality. So, like, what is it that I'm missing? It came down. I wasn't choosing. I finally felt safe within my body. I knew that I was the creator. I knew that everything came down to me, and everything that I experience outside of me is a reflection of how I feel within. I knew all of that mentally, but I wasn't allowing my body to choose, because to allow my body to choose meant I was going to have to start not sacrificing for my loved ones. I was going to have to start taking back my choice when it came to certain experiences that I no longer believed were my responsibility. I was going to have to walk the walk. And I thought that I was, but I kept choosing. I ended up quitting vaping by choice because I knew that I didn't want to force. So I just wrote it on a sticky note, said I'm a non vapor now before it was real, and then forgot about it. And 6 months later, I was a non vapor. Randomly one day, done. And just changed the identity underneath. Not because I forced it, not because of some ritual, not because of anything other than I made a fucking choice and I meant it and trusted that it would come when the time was right, and it did. And that time can get smaller and smaller and smaller, and I'm noticing it more and more the more that I choose, because I finally feel safe to choose. And because I finally have the seeing for the awareness to understand that I have choice in more areas than I ever gave myself credit for. Because I finally realized that I get to claim my full fucking authority over my life. And that doesn't equal hurting other people. Because I am somebody who was born understanding that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have. I have always accepted people for who they are. And when you accept people for who they are, sometimes that line gets blurred of, well, I don't get to say my truth because I understand that they're hurting. But then you harm yourself by not sharing your truth if it's necessary. That's where it becomes sacrifice, because you understand, but there comes a point when you need to understand yourself. Because that personal accountability is what shifts everything. When we finally claim our life, we become accountable for our lives, and we consciously choose. That's when we can have truly unconditional, loving, free relationships and connections, and living a full, free life. That's what unapologetic means. That's what unconditional love is. To love without conditions, to accept humanity as it is, and know that everything is a reflection of how you feel on the inside. And when you're no longer at war with yourself on the inside, you no longer see war outside yourself either. That's what this message is for me. That's what unapologetic living is. I'm still getting pieces that become more clear and more clear every day. But my life showed me that. And when your life starts showing you these things, you start realizing, like, it's not as simple as a fucking carbon copy, cookie cutter blueprint. Like, none of the gurus can hand any of us the map to our life. We have to claim it. And so when I share my offers with you, they're not offers to work with me because I think you need them. And I'm going to be the first one to tell you, you don't. You don't need anything outside of you. But if you want it, it's a hell of a good time on the inside. And that's the kind of life I live. That is the relationship I have with my husband, with my children. They're relationships of choice. We have choice in if we are together or not every single day. We have choice in how we show up and how we love. And that choice allows a full, free life for all of us. So inside all of the things that I create, that is the first and foremost. There's no guru, there's no hierarchy. I'm dismantling all of that in my reality. Because we're all one. We don't need anything outside of us. But we can choose it. We can want it. And we can play with it, because that's the magic of why we're here. To play with reality. We come from unconditional love. We come from source energy. We all come from the same beautiful light. I do not believe that we came here to just only embody those things. We came here to feel fucking full out. What a gift it is to feel heartbreak, to feel grief because we loved so deeply, to love without conditions. Oh, that's the freest love there is. To be able to set someone free and know that if they're yours to be in your life, they'll come back. But to trust in the love that flows within you so deeply that it doesn't matter if they do, because you know it's all working out exactly as it's designed to, because you chose to, because you chose it. So remember, what I'm going to leave you with today is that when you feel safe, you can see clearly. And when you can see clearly, you can choose intentionally. Safety, seeing, sovereignty. And if any of this resonated with you and you would like to choose to be inside any of the environments that are created, just remember that those foundations, those places, those environments, they're a choice. And they're inside the bio. So until next time, choose yourself. Everything rearranges from there. Welcome home. If something in this stayed with you, if it shifted something or made you see your life a little clearer, hold on to that. Not tightly or forcefully, just enough to acknowledge that something in you responded. You don't need to prove anything from here. You don't need to rush into any change. Just stay connected to what you felt, because that's how your path unfolds. Not by following someone else's way, but by recognizing your own way, moment by moment. I'm walking mine, you're walking yours, and sometimes our paths meet here. So take what's yours and let the rest fall away. Come back to yourself. Everything rearranges from there.
Flow like rivers, wild and free. Dive into oceans that call to thee. Breathe in the wind, let it carry your name. Unapologetic living is your claim. Let the waves whisper your story bold. Their rhythm eternal, their wisdom old. Echoes of dreams in the sea foam's dance. Find your truth, take the chance. The tide is rising, beckoning your soul. Crash through the doubts, make yourself whole. The world is vast and the water's deep, where courage wakes and fear's asleep. In every droplet you're alive again. With every ripple a new world begins. No need to hold back, embrace the stream. Unapologetic living, your lasting theme.